Greetings viewers, and welcome to what I'm hoping will be another educational video for you. If you clicked on the video link, you're here to learn about shapes and how to maybe employ them in your horde base or your house design crafting. So let's get into talking about it. So the materials that I'm going to be using today for this demonstration are all going to be steel blocks. As you can see in front of you, every one of these shapes is made from the same material. Therefore, they all have the same amount of hit points. But as you can see, some of them are a little bit more larger, bulkier, some of them are pointy, some of them are a little itty bitty. Every single one of these has the same amount of hit points. If I were to take my nail gun and shoot that, it has 10,000 hit points, just the same as that. So just because it's small doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of might to it. So how do we even get to these shapes? So let's talk about the shape menu itself first before we get into how to use them and what we can do with them. So typically what you're going to get is you're going to get a standard cube shape, whether you crafted the item itself or you looted a supply drop and maybe you got 500 concrete shapes and you don't really know what to do with them and they're just a bunch of blocks and you want to make something fancy. Well, you can do that. So as I sit here and hold this block in my hands, if I hold R on the keyboard, this little radial menu is going to pop up. There's several different options available to us, so we'll talk about what those are. If we go to this top one where it just says shape, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my mouse over it. I'm not going to click. I don't have to do anything else. Just highlight over it with the mouse and release R. And this menu is going to pop up. And holy cow, there is a lot of shapes. If we start up here where it says basic, obviously these are some basic shapes that you're probably going to need. You've got your cubes, you've got some stairs, you got some pillars, ramps, and ladders. Those are probably some of the more important ones, bars as well. We have square here, which square is essentially the base shape, but as you can see, there's some round stuff here. There is a lot of shapes in this menu. I don't even know all of them and what they are exactly useful for. I just know the ones that I've played around with and used and some of the ones that may be more popular, and we'll talk about those. So we've got round shapes. So you can see this is that cone that you saw as well as the sphere. And the little plate here. We also have the little pole. Got ramps and wedges galore. A lot of those are used for roof pieces. Got various different pole shapes. A couple different kinds of stairs, ladders. Got various types of catwalks. And of note, which we'll get to and talk about, we've got railings and we have bars, which look identical, but they serve different purposes, or can be used for different things anyway. This is trim, so I honestly don't even know how to help you with that. These are some of these. There's no way we'd be able to cover all the shapes. Some of these you're gonna just have to play with yourself and see what you can make out of them. The Windows one, other than like the boarded up window plugs, I don't really understand how these constitute windows, but you know, to each their own, I guess. These are the destroyed blocks, so if let's say you're building a POI or you want to kind of make your own thematic house or town or whatever you're setting up, whenever you go somewhere and you see these crumbled blocks that are all busted, you know, all apocalyptic, this is where you'd go to find that. Construction. You can have a sawhorse here. All kinds of weird brackets and grates. We got deco. So if you need a storage cube in your closet, you put your shoes in there. You got handicap signs. Clock pieces. Design. Look at that. Got all kinds of busted blocks. These are the ones you walk on that give out and then you fall into a pit or a room full of zombies. And then we've got letters and numbers. These are definitely handy. These are pretty obvious. We can talk about those as well. So let's go back to our shape menu here. We're still holding just a cube in our hand, so I'm going to go back to holding R. We have a couple different options, and then I'll talk about them and then what they do. So we've got copy shape. We've got simple, which, as you can see the arrow on here, that means rotation. We've got advanced, again, little curvy arrow means rotation. We've got on face, copy rotation, materials. So let's talk about copy shape first. So let's say you are trying to build a house or you're trying to recreate something you saw somewhere you like to design. You say, you know what? I don't know where to find this spherical shape. So I'm going to put my crosshairs on that sphere. I'm going to hold R and I'm just going to highlight over copy shape and release R. And now I'm holding a sphere. So now if I place these down, I've got a bunch of spheres. So those. So that's our copy shape. So it's kind of like the paintbrush tool. If you want to use the dropper, you got to point your crosshairs at the piece that you want to copy. For the longest time, I thought that it had to be touching the block. So it may be touching the block there, but my crosshairs are over here looking at something else, and I'm wondering why it's not copying the proper shape. So that's why, because it has to be what you're looking at. So let's go back to here. So then we go to advanced. So that's not really going to do us a lot of good, showing it with a sphere or a cube. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the shape of this cone. And now obviously it's pointing up like this. Well, let's say I'm trying to do something spectacular with it. Maybe I want to place one here and I want to put one on top, but I want the nose facing down. So if I just go over to simple, again, highlight over, release R, and I left click, which I didn't say you use right click to actually place the shapes. So left click just spins it. I mean, obviously it's a simple rotation, so all it's doing is spinning. You don't really notice it a whole lot with that particular shape. With some of the other ones, it comes into play. So I want to flip this thing over. So I'm going to go to advanced, highlight over it, release R, and I'm just going to keep left clicking. It's going to go through all those rotations, and then look at that. It's going to flip it upside down, and then it's going to keep spinning it that way. So if I wanted to place that, I can do that. And that really doesn't look like there's a whole lot of points of contact, so you wonder about stability in this game. We'll cover that as well when we get to it. But that's kind of how you use your rotation. And then let's just say I wanted to stack another one on top of there, and then I go, well, I need the point facing over. So if I just keep left clicking, well, look, now it's going to rotate it that way. So maybe you want to put a spiked accent on your wall, which I can't do because that plate's in the way. But look at that. I can stick it even to there. As long as I keep left clicking with this advanced rotation, it's going to keep spinning. So then look, now I can place it on there too. So those are those rotations. So then now we have on face. So this one's kind of more handy if you're trying to do something like what I have here. So if I put on face, if I'm looking at the face of that block, that's where it's going to place it. If I look at the face of that block, it's going to move it there. If I look at it there, there, there. So then you're not sitting there, whatever the shape is, and left clicking nonstop. It gets to the point you want it. You accidentally click one more time. It goes too many and you've got to go back through the rotation again. It's really annoying. So if I just wanted to make this a spiky box, I just do that. That's all I have to do. So the on face can be very helpful and time saving if you don't want to sit there and keep left clicking and wearing out the left button on your mouse. So next thing we have here, so we had the on face, we have copy rotation. So if we had a unique shape, let's say we're looking at these little triangle pieces here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that shape. So now we're holding that thing. And let's say, well, this is facing the wrong way. I can't get it to where I wanted it. I'm going to look at that piece, put my crosshairs on it. I'm going to hold R and I'm going to copy rotation. Now it's going to be exactly the same. So if I start putting it down, those are all going to be the same. And then I can just left click from there if I wanted to, let's say, place these here for whatever reason. So pretty self-explanatory, easy to use, but if you don't know it's there or what it's for, definitely difficult to get the hang of. So we'll get rid of those. So let's go back to our fancy shape here. We're going to hold R again, and then we've got materials here. If we're wanting to place something, basically that kind of is like pre-painted-ish, we could use this. So our default here is the beverage cooler. So, I mean, we could just select bookcase. And if you look, those pieces now have that shape. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the block shape. And look, we now have a bookshelf. So if you wanted to just, again, make a POI, and let's say you were trying to make it nice and decorative and you didn't want to use an actual bookshelf and you didn't want players to just bash through a wall to kind of get to the secret loot stash, you could use something like this because it's actually got 10,000 hit points. It's a steel block. Maybe a time-saving option if you are building POIs and you just want to get through it, not searching through the different textures to paint the blocks. You can just do it this way as well. So that covers all of the items here. All right, so we're back to just a steel block. So let's actually go ahead and look at some of the other things as far as shapes are concerned and kind of how they apply to you and what you can do with them. So what would you do if I told you that this, that, and that are all exactly the same. In the eyes of the game, in the eyes of the zombies, in the eyes of construction, every single one of these blocks is the same thing. They're all steel. They all have the same amount of HP. Let's see if I can actually hit this one. So you can see that's 10,000 HP, but it's a little teeny tiny post. This pillar, same thing. This is the normal cube. That's a plate corner. Uh-oh. Tactical reload. And a plate. You can see this one's floating. That's crazy. How do we make that happen? Well, the building in this game, all of the shapes take up a 1 cube space. So looking at this 1 cube here, that's kind of deceptive. You think, okay, that takes up that 1 block. But when I go to use this little teeny tiny thing, that shouldn't take up the whole cube, right? Well, if you notice, it's got this white wireframe cube around it, and that signifies that this is indeed taking up this entire cube. And as far as the game is concerned, and the zombies, when they're coming to eat your face inside of your horde base on Horde Night, they see this as 1 cube block. So zombies can jump 1 cube high, and they can also stand on them and maneuver on them. So when they see this thing and it's in the world, they think, well, that's something I can get on top of. So that's something that you can kind of use to your advantage. But also, if you're trying to build stuff, it can kind of be a detriment, because you would think that the way these posts are set up, well, I want to have a post in the center there. Well, unfortunately, you can't do that, because all 4 of those cubes are being occupied. This little teeny tiny post is taking up that whole space. And also, it's actually extending up a little bit higher than you think. So if I were to place that, you notice that's floating. Well, that's because that little post doesn't take up the entire length of the cube. So the extra gap that's there is what's left, plus that one stacking on top of it. So you could, theoretically, if you really wanted to make a kind of a cheese base, you could do a little something like this. I can stick. And basically, in the eyes again of the zombies, get it? Can we get it? That is a staircase. So they think that they can climb that. However, I assure you they cannot. And what's even neater on top of that is, because of the stability in this game, these pieces are considered touching. So yes, they're floating there, but I can extend this out. And it thinks, again, that that is an entire cube space, even though it is just a little teeny, itsy bitsy tiny cylinder. So again, if you really wanted to make a cheesy base, you could do something like this, make this staircase go up even higher, and then run it all the way across and just use these kind of little things as supports. The zombies can run in between them. They're still possible that they're going to smack it. Obviously, if it's made out of steel, it's going to take them a little bit longer to break things, but it's a smaller surface area, so it's less likely that they're going to get hung up on things, such as if you made a base like this, the zombies are going to try and run through there, and they can't. They'll get angry, they'll get stuck, and they start punching things. They don't seem to like sharp corners. Same thing with a solid thing like this. They'll get stuck here trying to cut through somehow. They can't figure it out. They get angry, they just start punching your base. Using shapes like this for support can actually help you in that arena, because then the zombies can just run right through it. I mean, it's almost impossible to get stuck. It's just a matter of, are they going to punch it or not? And theoretically, if you were tall enough up, you could set up your horde base. You could be crafting, kind of jamming out to your favorite tunes. The zombies will be running down here thinking that they know how to get up to you, trying to jump. They're going to miss their jumps. They're going to fall. They're going to come back and keep trying again. They're going to be piling up. Again, it's possible that they smash some things, but you could also just, again, use these things as extra supports in various areas, and it's going to take them quite a while to knock your base down. So as far as building structures internally, so let's get rid of that real quick. So again, this is recognizing these plates as taking up the entire block. That is one L-shaped block that takes up that whole thing. If I wanted to place an item there, I would not be able to do that. And it's going to kind of like freak the game out, and things again are going to be floating kind of like this, because it's recognizing that whole block. So if, let's say, you built a awesome house / POI, whatever it is, and you're trying to decorate it, and you want to place an object there, you're going to have a hard time with that. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to place a wooden stove in there. The only place I can put one is in this center here. I cannot put anything up against that wall because it's a plate. Now, there's ways to get around that depending on how you build your POI. I can butt one up against the outside here, and that's fine. That's because the plate only takes up one side of the cube. So if I do this and I copy rotation, you see, if I place that there, there's now a gap. I cannot fit that stove inside. It just skips it. If I'm looking right at it, it will not let me place it because that plate is taking up that entire cube. So if, again, you're trying to use plates to maybe save space and make it a little bit more roomy, you can maneuver in here. You can walk around just fine. I can walk all the way up against the edge. It doesn't prevent me. It doesn't prevent zombies from moving. Again, you just cannot place things there. So if you have a whole wall here and you're trying to stick storage boxes to it, they're going to be hovering one block width away from your wall. And if you care about that sort of thing, it's going to kind of be ugly. If you don't, well, great. Some people do, so they're not going to be happy about that. So just pay attention when you're using these shapes, how you kind of place them and how it's going to affect your build. So one of the things that I recommend doing if you're going to be doing any sort of building, especially if you're not going to be playing in a creative setting and you're in your survival world and you have a idea of how you want to build a horde base. Let's say you like this idea here that I've presented and you're like, man, I want to try something like that, but I really don't want to waste all my resources. I don't want to build these things, find out, oh, that doesn't connect where I want it to, or I put it in the wrong place. There's kind of a helpful tool that you can use. And what you can do is you can use these wooden shapes, because when I right click and place that, unlike the other shapes in the game, I can look at it and it says pick up. So I can just pick that shape up. So let's just say that I was like, you know what? I like this idea. I want to copy that shape. Well, look, now I've got these little guys and I want to make sure that this is going to connect and reach where I want it to. I can do that. And it's the same exact thing. The only problem is the durability of these is not very good. So I would not recommend leaving that as your horde base. Again, just using it as kind of a test to see if it'll work. And then if it does work, you have two options from there. You can either pick it back up and replace it with your block of choice, whatever, like again, you have concrete, cobblestone, steel, whatever, and replace it. Or if you have all of the requisite materials and you don't just have shapes already made and you've got wood, cobblestone, concrete, and steel, you can then just come here and right click and continue to upgrade. I don't have the cobblestone and concrete in my inventory, so it's giving me that little noise, but now I cannot pick this up and it now has the durability of wood. So if I were to shoot that, it now has 500 HP, whereas this, if I shoot it, it only has 100. And I can repair it because it's wood, but you see where I'm going with that. So as long as you have the materials, you can then upgrade it, and then you'll again know that your base is working. Again, you find out it's not, oh, that design sucks, I don't like it, pick your shape back up. So how does this benefit you in building your base as well? So here's another thing to keep in mind. So let's say you are just building a standard base that goes up and you got the zombies going to it. And these are your supports. Kind of just spread them out. Just going on small scale here. So let's just say these are your support beams. They're big, they're bulky. Zombies try and run under them. They get stuck and caught up and they want to punch things. Well, there are some alternate things that you can do to add even more support and structure to your base. One of the things, if you're using cubes, is to, again, use plates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold R. I'm going to hit on face. I'm going to right click. Look, right click. Now, if they're this close together, you see how that white cube takes up the whole thing? I can place that one. I cannot place one there. So you got to make sure you spread them out. However, this is one good way to reinforce your base, and it doesn't kind of detract from the look too bad. If you don't like this little corner here, there's not a piece that you can put in there, because again, it's going to take up this whole cube. If there was, maybe there is, and I'm not aware of it. Again, there are a lot of shapes in this game, and I'm not an expert by any means. Just trying to give you some helpful information here. So now, at least on the places that we were able to actually put a plate, they're double protected. So the zombies would now have to smash through this plate and then smash through this block to cause any sort of damage. But then keep in mind, they can jump up and they can now use this plate as something to gain access to you. So there is kind of a drawback to doing that. Another option you have if you're going to be building some supports for your base, which I like to do. Let's go to the shape menu here real quick. So this one is just called pole. There's no fancy anything to it. Like this one's pole centered and pole side centered, pole 1/2. This is just pole. So if you're trying to find a shape on here in specific and you know that, and you can't find this shape by just looking, just type in pole and it will kind of limit your selection here based on that. So one thing we can do, knowing that, again, this little thing's going to take up that one whole cube, what I can do is that. I can then do that. Left clicking to spin it. And guess what? I now have a 4-piece pillar that's 4 times as strong as this, because there are now 4 pieces here that the zombies will have to break. So if they get angry, they're running over here punching stuff, and you know they're hitting hard enough or the material's weak enough, boom, they broke that. Well, they now have to break this and this and this to break any sort of structure that's actually going up to your base before they can cause any weakness. So yes, technically they could try and jump on that little spot, but it's unlikely that they're going to be able to get up there, especially if there's a whole bunch of zombies angrily punching your supports. So that is going to be an option, kind of, again, keep them from getting to you. So you will not really be able to use plates to reinforce that unless you kind of want stuff that's floating out here all crazy like. All right, so again, as you can see, because these individual pillars, just that little corner is taking up this whole block, if I were to try and use plates to reinforce it, kind of like that one, it's going to be all the way out here. So it's going to make it way wider than it really maybe needs to be. I don't know, depending on your build, you can obviously do that. You can't put any sort of ladders inside of here or anything because, again, this block is taking that up. So this would just be basically a reinforcing structure. In terms of size, that's going to be a lot bigger footprint than this. I probably would never do that. I don't know a situation where that would come in handy for me. This would definitely come in handy. Again, this will be one of those situations where I would recommend using the wooden shapes and practicing with that and just making sure you line up, because again, it is going to affect your blocks up top and how they connect. So if I were to, let's say that was the height limit that I wanted to go to, it's now in the center of those, so I can't put a support beam on the outside. So aesthetically, it may not be what you want it to, but it's structurally going to help you out. All right, so let's talk about some other shapes that may be of use to you, but you kind of maybe need a little bit more understanding of how they work or what you can do with them. So, as always, again, like I said, if you're not playing in creative and you don't have the luxury of being able to just spawn whatever pieces you want to try out and then get this little tool here and blow everything up and then start fresh, definitely recommend using these wooden frame things. So what I'm going to do here is, one of the things I like to put in front of my dart traps are the little arrow slits. So again, I'm going to hold R, go up to shapes, release. I'm just going to go right to here and type in arrow, and it's going to give me these options. So there's a couple variations of it. Some of them are a little bit smaller than others. I go for the full size one, and it looks kind of like this, but if you flip it that way, we'll stack another one on top just so you get the idea. Again, if you watched my dart trap video or any of my other traps where we use that base, it is built over there. So this slit here, your dart trap butts up against it. Let's get that out of the way. And this is just kind of aesthetic. It really doesn't matter if it just had that slit. The darts will go through it to shoot your enemies, but you can see it all the way up here. Now, the issue with this particular shape is that you cannot reach through here. So if this is something that you're going to employ in your base, I would recommend making sure that you have access to the back side of this trap if you're needing to reload it and mess with it at all or repair it, because you cannot do that from the front. However, if I were to shoot through here, I can hit that, but I cannot repair. I cannot reach through to get it. And as well, you cannot use your wire tool and reach through and connect it. So if this is the route, let's say your power source is somewhere over here and you're needing to run your wire to it, I would probably make sure that this is not here first and then connect it. And then once everything's all shored up and you're ready to go, then go ahead and place your arrow slits down. So that's just kind of something aesthetically, again, that I like to do for that. Another commonly used shape that I like to use in my bases are railings rather than bars, and I'll kind of go over the reasoning for that. So let's go ahead first. I'm going to go to my shape menu, and I'm going to get railings. Let's turn that off. So we see right here, we've got railing. So we're going to switch out, and we've got that. And I'm going to put that right on top of the dart trap there. And then we're going to go to the menu again, and I'm just going to switch to bars, which I think those are exactly the same thing, right? Other than maybe visually looking a little different. The railings have more square posts in the middle, and the bars have circular posts. So we shot our dart trap with the nail gun, so I can get to it. You can see it's $24.99 out of $2,500. I don't have the materials to repair it, but if I right click, it makes the noise saying, hey, I'm trying to repair this thing. These are my railings here. I can reach through and I can actually repair through that. These are the bars. Can't reach that. Right clicking, nothing's happening. And if you say, oh, well, that's because it's on the side, it's not on the front. Well, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Spin this around. The exact same location. Guess what? I can't access my dart trap to repair it. So I don't know why that is or what the difference is. Maybe the devs missed that one way or the other, and you're supposed to be able to reach through these, or you're not supposed to reach through the others. But either way, you can shoot through one of those. So if this was not here and there was a zombie on the other side of that, you can shoot things on the other side of this and it'll go through just fine. And it's really kind of odd because if your crosshairs are directly on this bar and you shoot, it'll still hit the zombies on the other side. It feels like you have to shoot in between there, but it really doesn't matter. So that's not actually a thing that can happen. I just had this blade trap here to demonstrate that same concept, but I don't like that. If you watch my blade trap video, you'll see how I employ the railings, stick it to the block there itself so you can actually reach through to repair it while the zombies are getting sliced up at the door to your horde base. So one of the other things I said that we would cover would be the letters and numbers. So, I mean, we can just stick with our wood shape here. So we're going to go to shapes. We're going to go here and let's just type V. Hey, look at that. We got a V. So you can actually put these on things and they actually count as a separate block themselves. So it's kind of like putting a plate on top of something. So if I were to do that, and then, I don't know, let's just say we came here and we found a K. Hey, look at that. We've got a V and a K there. Again, we can pick these up if need be. They are blocks again. So if I right click, it'll actually upgrade that material there. So if you're trying to label your horde base, you want to make sure everybody knows who lives there, you can use these. And it's the same thing for numbers. And these are also paintable. As you can see, if you watch some of my other trap videos, these are the numbers and they are individually, again, a block and they are paintable. If I were to look at this and shoot, it's actually damaging that number. If I were to shoot over here, as you can see, I was not pointing at the number, but it's kind of the same thing as those plates. It occupies the entire space on this block. So if the block behind it somehow got damaged, you wouldn't be able to get it from this side. You'd have to go from the other side to repair or, again, break it. Or if you wanted to paint it separate from this, you'd have to access it from a different side. So if my number was there, I would have to come here to paint my block. So this was not a horde-based building tutorial. It was just kind of a instructional video to kind of give you some ideas on shapes, maybe how basically to use them, how to access them. To be able to play with every single variety of shape is going to take your imagination messing with it, finding one that you like, and working with it. So hopefully you guys found this video somewhat useful. If there's anything I didn't answer, you still have questions about, or that you want to know regarding shapes, please let me know down below, and I will be glad to get back to you and answer the best that I can, and potentially make a future video if the information is detailed enough or needs to be presented in a manner that makes sense versus just reading words on a page. So If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Any likes, comments, subscriptions, always welcome. I'm always open to constructive criticism or feedback in terms of being able to make my videos better for you. Just let me know that there's anything that I can do to make that happen. Just telling me it sucks doesn't help me do anything to make it not suck. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.